Okay, so a little more breakdown on why we hinge instead of rock back. So we have to understand early access. If we're having trouble getting this back heel up, then we need to hinge first and then raise the heel. Some of us are going to have the stability in our foot to be able to do that. If it's not happening, we should be working more of our foot activation, foot strengthening exercises and work to create stability. Stability is created by tensioning the body, not by relaxing the body. So we have to understand that. Now, the second thing we have to understand, so we want to think of what I'm doing here is, if you have to hinge first to get this back heel up, perfectly fine. But what this front foot is doing before we start hinging, we are creating the pressure downward through big toe, great toe, fifth metatarsal. Once we create good downward pressure, that's going to turn the leg on. Now we want the hamstring, which is right here, to be on. So in order to do that, I'm going to, without the knee moving, I'm going to start pulling the floor backwards with the front part of my foot. Okay? The heel we're not worried about because it would be on the rubber. And we want those 3 pressure spots off the rubber so that we're able to pull back hard. That's going to turn the hamstring on even more. So we're pushing down hard enough to where the floor pressure doesn't allow us to actually move the foot backward, but it makes the knee almost want to bend and pull you forward. With this back foot, we are putting forward and downward pressure into the foot. So those same 3 spots are pressing down, and then you're squeezing forward. Okay, so you're almost pinching the ground by pulling your front foot back and your back foot forward. This is going to engage your psoas. You'll feel this little contraction in your growing area that feels like a stretching and a strengthening at the same time. So as we move forward, when we start upright and we get into our hinge, we want to be sure that the core is on and the ribs are locked down. So your core is tight always. As soon as you start, before you even engage floor pressure, the core should be on. So as we get into our hinge, notice how little movement there is in both feet and both knees. What's moving and traveling backward is my go muscle, my hips. That's how we load the hips. The deeper I hinge, the more you're going to feel the hamstrings and the butt turn on and activate, especially if we're pulling with the front foot, pushing with the back leg. As we continue forward, complete your hinge, you're squeezing your stomach, you're squeezing your butt. So now you allow the butt to be squeezed so hard to start to travel the knee forward. What I mean by that is you see this shift happening. This is in super slow motion. So as this shift happens, we talked about earlier, you get to a point where the glutes make this triangle with the knee. Notice the heel is off the ground and we create this triangle right here. This triangle of tension is what we want to create with this front leg. Notice we've already created it with the back leg and it's already being released. Triangles, triangles. We've got shin angles that both point forward. That's going to allow us to create the last part of our motion, which is once the knees are unhinging in that direction, now the hips need to bring me and redirect all of that energy forward. So we have to understand that if you don't drive your hips at this point as hard as you can and your glutes aren't engaged, all this energy is going to stay upward. And what's going to happen is our shoulders are tilt back. We'll have bad posture going through our stride and landing as well, because a lot of our energy is going vertical. And you wanted to understand that all this vertical energy that you create with your quads and your leg muscles have to be moved in this direction by your glutes. Notice, I never get to my tippy toes. At this point right here, I'm already leaving the ground. That back foot has pushed, already getting me into a super early stack position. Now, because I've already pulled with this front foot, now we talked about that moment where the glutes turn on more and we're going to be able to really drive out with that front leg. Now, The drive is a little different here just because there's a dent right there and I don't want to run into it. That's why I drive vertically, but you should be getting way out here because of how hard you're driving your hips. And look, my toe is still on the ground. That is why I'm not driving forward. So when you're watching and videoing, be sure when you're right here is when you should be finishing the hips through, just like that arrow, and everything is going forward.